So welcome, Larry, to NFRW on the Issues. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, Judy, thank you
As
so
you
much.
so accurately say, we have a country to save.
Well,
And
thank you
we've,
so much for inviting the blackface to white supremacy.
well, and we've seen our justice system wounded, and most recently with the New York convictions against President Trump. So help us today. Help us unpack this chaos. Tell us what impact you see this having on the presidential election, and give us some hope today.
Well, what it is a two-tiered system of justice. You have Bill Clinton paying off what George Stephanopoulos referred to as bimbos. You have John Edwards paying off women as well. Hillary used money for the Steele dossier that turned out to be phony, and as did the DNC, and the FEC fined her and fined the DEC. Nobody brought any criminal charges against her for doing that. She called the payments legal expenses, where we heard that before. President Trump refers to the payments as legal expenses, and he's being criminally prosecuted. It's absolutely outrageous. And when you look at Joe Biden having documents in about 4 or 5 different places, including documents when he was a senator from a SCIF, which is a secured location into which you're not supposed to bring any paper or any pen or take out any paper or any pen. So he clearly did not have a right to have those documents, a clear violation of the Espionage Act, yet he skated. And Robert Hur, the special counsel, said that he was an elderly man with a poor memory, so therefore no charges are going to be brought. Meanwhile, charges are being brought against Donald Trump. It is absolutely, totally outrageous. Then you look at Georgia. What he's being indicted for is because he made a phone call to the Secretary of State and said, find me 11,700 votes. He didn't say steal them. He said, make sure that you haven't undercounted that number. That's all he said. Perfectly innocent phone call. Even the Secretary of State later on in his book said he did not feel intimidated, did not feel he's being threatened. Yet Donald Trump is facing charges against brought by a Fulton County DA who ran, as did Alvin Bragg, as did Letitia James, the AG of New York, promising to get Donald Trump. Now, I'm a lawyer, and I briefly spent time in the DA's office, LA County, and their job is to do justice. Their job is not to run promising to get people. So as far as I'm concerned, merely campaigning to get Donald Trump is a violation of their canons of ethics, and I'm surprised that the ABA hasn't said anything. So it's clearly a two-tiered system of justice. Regarding January 6th, for crying out loud, the media routinely refers to it as an insurrection. Out of the, I think, 400 and so odd people that have been charged, not a single person, including President Trump, has been charged with quote-unquote insurrection. And of course, Trump has not been convicted of anything. Yet you had Maine and Connecticut trying to argue that he is an insurrectionist and therefore, because of the 14th Amendment, should not be on the ballot. It's again, absolutely, totally outrageous. In 3 days after the conviction, I think he's raised about $200 million, which is a tsunami of money. I've never heard of anybody raising that much money over that short a period of time. And the polls that have come out show at best it is a wash. And at worst, if you're a Democrat, it's ticked off a lot of independents who feel that there's a double standard, whether they like Trump or not. This double standard could mean that you could be a target by some creative, vicious prosecutor. And speaking of which, I've been writing about this, and I said they've unleashed the monster. There are a whole bunch of Republican AGs, Republican DAs, and we could figure out all sorts of clever ways of going after people like Barack Obama, for example.
Yep.
His AG failed to turn over the documents pertaining to Fast and Furious.
Yes.
Eric Holder was the first AG ever to be held in criminal contempt of Congress. Nothing happened to him. I'm sure somebody could figure out some sort of way of arguing, as did Alvin Bragg, that the statute of limitations should be expanded because you can do this, that, and the other. You even had lawyers on CNN. I watch a lot of CNN, so my friends don't have to. And a number of their prominent lawyers also said that they thought this case should not have been brought. One of their lawyers is a guy named Eli Honig. He said it was an unjustifiable mess. It never should have been brought in the first place. So you're having all sorts of experts on both sides of the aisle saying that the case never should have been brought. And in my opinion, there's so much reversible error from the charge of being brought in the first place to this jury instructions telling the jury that they don't have to be unanimous. They were charged, they believe that Donald Trump violated. So I believe it'll be overturned on appeal. The bad news, of course, is that the likelihood is that that will take place after the election. So to the extent that some people feel that Donald Trump is a quote unquote convicted felon, they won't vote for him, that's in the water. So I believe that ultimately it'll be overturned on appeal. The polls show that an increasingly larger number of people believe that Donald Trump is a victim of a two-tier system of justice and don't feel he's done anything wrong, and feel that the prosecutions have been politically motivated. One more thing. I watch a lot of Julie, CNN, MSNBC, and what I've done when this trial was going on, Donald Trump would come out sometime in the morning and sometime at the end of the day, and he would say something. And he would also talk about inflation and the borders and the new wars and what Biden did with Afghanistan and gas prices. And then, of course, talk about what he thinks about the trial being a sham. So give him an opportunity to basically give a speech that all the people, even those who hate him, have to listen to.
Yeah.
However, if you cut on CNN and MSNBC, after Donald Trump speaks for a few minutes, they cut away and they go inside the studio. They put him on a little box somewhere where he's talking, but you can't hear anything. So if I'm an independent voter or a voter who otherwise would not be listening to Fox, I'm not able to hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
And what they do is Donald Trump will say, Joe Biden inherited inflation of 1.4%, but he said he inherited it at 9%. That's not true. Joe Biden has allowed in almost 8 million illegal aliens. Joe Biden has gas prices 50% higher than what they were when I was president. And this whole trial has been orchestrated by the Biden administration. That's what they jump on. They'll then say, that's just not true. There's no evidence whatsoever that Alvin Bragg was influenced in any way, shape, or form by the Biden White House. Everything else he said about the economy, about inflation, about gas prices, about the borders, completely ignored. They harp on one thing, and that's what we're up against, and we're always up against that. I saw
that's right. Well, and you touched on it. One of the things that makes our justice system in the United States so great is the jury and the appeals process. But in this case, the jury failed President Trump. And what confidence do you have in the New York appeals process?
Well, I have confidence in the U.S. Supreme Court, where I think ultimately this is going to go. There are 6 appointees that have been appointed by Republicans, 3 by Democrats. Now, when I was in law school, Julie, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to whether the justice was appointed by a Republican or by a Democrat, because I kind of thought their job was to interpret the Constitution. I now see that there's so much bias in the ideology on the left that it is important that 6 of the Supreme Court justices have been appointed by Republicans, because they, in my opinion, follow the law, whereas the Democrats follow politics. So what I was going to say, though, is this real quickly. Trump claims that Bragg was influenced by the Biden White House. The Biden White House somehow orchestrated all this. And the media on the left is saying that there's no evidence of this. And he referred to him as a George Soros-backed DA. And that got fact-checked. And the fact-check said it was misleading. There's an organization called Color of Change, which is a progressive left-wing organization. And when Bragg announced his candidacy, they said they were going to spend $1 million to get him elected. 5 days after they made that announcement, guess who gave Color of Change $1 million donation? George Soros. So as far as I'm concerned, you have to go very far to connect the dots. And then the number 3 guy, a prosecutor in the DOJ, all of a sudden stepped down and joined the Bragg DA's office in order to be a major factor in prosecuting this crime. And we also know that Nathan Wade and Fonnie Lewis did have meetings with Joe Biden, and reportedly Joe Biden at the time was upset that Georgia had failed to bring charges against Donald Trump. So I don't think it's a conspiracy theory to assume that Joe Biden's fingerprints are on all these different cases against Donald Trump.
Absolutely. So 2 questions, last two questions. Mm-hmm. Can our justice system recover? And then tell us about your PAC, Make America Just Again, that is fighting to help restore our justice system.
I think the only way our justice system recovers is if Donald Trump wins in 2024. I think if he doesn't, we're going to have much more of all this. For example, just recently, Joe Biden has announced executive orders to, quote, secure the border, close quote. That's how the LA Times put it. Biden issued the executive order to secure the border. The executive order is weak and lame. There are enough holes that Arnold Schwarzenegger could drive his Hummer through. But the point is, all of a sudden, he's doing stuff that he claimed he didn't have the power to do. He has unleashed the Secretary of Interior, the Homeland Security Secretary, all these people not to do their jobs. And as far as I'm concerned, this collusion between the DOJ and the social media platforms to shut down the Hunter Biden laptop story, to suppress any kind of dissent about the COVID vaccine and mandates and lockdowns has all been unleashed by the federal government. And if Biden is reelected, we're going to have more of the same. Donald Trump, in his waning days of his administration, issued some executive orders making it easier to fire people that were not doing their jobs. In other words, easier to drain the swamp. I think he underestimated how dug in they were. He's not naive now, and so I think he'll do a lot about that.
Good. Tell us about Make America Just Again.
MakeAmericaJustAgain.org is a PAC that I've set up to get rid of these soft on crime George Soros-backed DAs. We mentioned Alvin Bragg. There's one in Philadelphia named Larry Krasner. The one in the Bay Area named Chesa Boudin got recalled. Think about that. Only about 5% of the people in the Bay Area are Republicans, and they recalled that DA. We got one here in LA County, George Gascon. And there are a bunch of other George Soros-backed DAs. There's a wonderful book called Rogue Prosecutor, written by a couple of former prosecutors with the Heritage Foundation, outlining exactly the damage these people have done by allowing bad guys to remain on the streets, by pushing policies like cashless bail, by downgrading categories of crime from violent offenses to nonviolent offenses, and therefore bad guys are not doing the kind of time they should be doing, and they're out on the streets committing violence against the very people, black and brown people, primarily in the inner city that people on the left purport to care about. So MakeAmericaJustAgain.org is designed to raise money, to raise awareness, to put out op-ed pieces, ultimately to fund candidates that are going to defeat people like Alvin Bragg. And that's my way of attacking this two-tiered judicial system that we have in this country.
And thank you. We appreciate you for doing that. I tell our members where they can find, we have a Country to Save podcast.
Well, they can just go type in on YouTube, Larry Elder, We've Got a Country to Save. I have it pinned to the top of my Twitter account. And everywhere you get your podcast, whether it's Rumble or any other outlet, you can find it. As far as my book is concerned, As Goes California, you can go to Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble and get that. It's all about why I ran for governor of California and why I decided to run briefly for president of the United States.
Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to hearing more about Make America Just Again.
Trump or Biden? Trump or Biden?
I don't know.
What do you need to know to make that decision?
To have a whole new choice.
Trump.
Why?
Inflation and immigration. He's gonna stop War 3.
Thank you. Thank you. Trump or Biden? Thank you. Do you know who you're voting for in the 2024 election?
Most probably Trump.
Trump? Okay. Trump or Biden? Say it louder.
Trump.
That's right here. Biden.
Gotta pick one. Biden. Like Biden.
Why?
I agree with his policies on climate more than Trump. The environment's fairly important to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about foreign policy? Do you feel like he's taking a strong
I feel like
stance?
I'm not informed enough to make a good decision. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Can I ask you guys a question about the 2024 election?
Yes. Go Trump.
Trump or Biden?
No camera, y'all. Go Trump. No camera.
It's okay. It's
Go Trump.
You know what I'm saying? I
Go
just want the best
Trump.
for my country. You know, this is the greatest country in America.
Get that.
The greatest country in America.
Make America great again. Make America great again, man. Make America great again.
Trump or Biden? Trump or Biden?
Obviously Trump.
Trump or Biden?
Undecided.
Okay. What would change your mind?
I'm interested to see how they perform under the debates.
Trump or Biden?
Trump.
Yay! Good.
Awesome.
Do you want to say why?
He's all about the communities, the rural communities, which I really like because I'm from Texas. So shout out to all my Texas people. And I just think that as far as our economy as well, it was the strongest under him, despite what you may think. And we really need that because cost of living is hard on everyone. So I think that's really important as well.
I would just like to say that, our citizenship, like part of the Constitution, everybody should come here and want to better themselves, and we understand that. But you can't devalue our own citizenship for those of us that already have that. And that's the thing that I feel like Trump, obviously I wish that he would watch the things that he says, and I think people realize that, but we also have to think about policy, and if we can separate those things. I'm a history teacher by trade, and I know that a lot of times media today, we're super hypersensitive to a lot of things that people do. In history, former presidents didn't have to go through the media that we have today. And so I think sometimes we're looking for that perfect person, and none of us are perfect. And certainly Trump is not perfect with how he handles a lot of things and how he presents himself. But we need to look at policies. And again, when you start talking about illegal immigration, the safety, it's not safe for us, and you devalue our citizenship. And when America's been strong, it's been proven historically. When America's strong, both economically and militarily, that is typically beneficial for the rest of the world.